Welcome to the Fuel Podcast, where we explore the foundations under extraordinary lives.
The Fuel Podcast is sponsored by the Christopher Schwartz team at First Choice Mortgage Advisors. NMLS ID 106583. If you're looking to purchase or refinance your mortgage, make the Christopher Schwartz team at First Choice Mortgage your first choice.
And now, here is your host, Chris Schwartz.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Chris Schwartz, your host of Fuel, and we are here today with Coach Bill Hart. Coach, how are you?
Buddy, I'm so good. It's so good to see you. It's been too long, so I'm glad we're hanging out here.
I know, right? This is the new way to hang out, right? So
it pretty much is.
Coach Bill comes to us. He's an executive coach with Building Champions. He has his own podcast. He's a host of All In with Coach Bill Hart. He's also a speaker and an author, White Collar Warrior. He has his book out. So Coach Bill does it all. I'm proud to say early on in my career, Coach Bill Hart, I was very fortunate enough to have some dumb luck and stumble into probably one of the best coaches in the industry in my very early career. So Coach Bill and I were just kind of talking before the show, and 11 years ago, Coach Bill and I worked together.
I actually think I probably owe you some kind of refund or credit or something, man, because back then I was trying to get my feet under me, so yeah, but been at it for a long time for sure. It's so good to see you, Chris, and good to see you well, and love that you've got your own show, man. This is spectacular.
Yeah, thank you. This is a fun, experiment for me. And, we get to meet and talk with awesome people and, really just what we really do is just share stories, Bill. And I know you're really good with the stories. So, and 25 years plus of coaching and working with, business executives and people through all different industries. I'm sure, there's so many stories that you can share, and that's really what Fuel's about. We want to really, meet with people that are able to share a story and to allow our listeners and those tuning in on YouTube or whatever platform to really tap into their fuel. And we're recording this during probably some of the most challenging times our nation has ever seen, arguably. I think tapping into that fuel, which as hopefully people listening know by now, but we'll share it for those that are new tuning in. Fuel it's an acronym for Foundations Under Extraordinary Lives. And that's really, I'm in my full-time, I guess, career in the mortgage industry. And when you think of the foundation for somebody, there's all these experiences that make up the foundation that, really have you operate and make decisions today that, maybe have impacted you 5 minutes ago or 20 years ago. And that's that fuel. So that's what we're going to get into today, Bill. And we're going to lead it into have you, talk about what's your fuel story.
Yeah, man. Yeah, so my fuel has always been achievement, my own initially, and then focusing on others. You mentioned my first book, White Collar Warrior. It's always fun to be able to say your first book when you don't have a second one yet, right? But the title of the second one is Closing the Gap. So that'll be the big letters, and then the subtitle will be Between Intention and Execution. And that's really what drives me, Chris, more than anything else is this idea of helping people to close the gaps between where they are and where they want to be. And that could be anything. Our slogan, as you know, at Building Champions is coaching life and business on purpose. And, since lockdown, I think people have begun to see, wow, they are inextricably linked more than ever. Your father, your grandfather life was probably segmented a lot more in terms of work and personal. And of course, these days, for the past however long you've been complying, right? 4, 6, 7 weeks. That stuff is all connected. And so for me, my greatest joy is to help clients, first of all, get clear on what they really want. That's shifting a little bit right now for a lot of clients that I'm seeing. We just posted something today that was interesting on Facebook. Feel free to take this, Chris, by the way, and push it out to your realtors. But it was, I forget how it's phrased, but it was like, based on this lockdown experience, my next house will have, and then there's a blank line.
Nice.
But I think it's legit, right? I think that people are suddenly realizing that, okay, you know what? Like, we need to be closer to a park, or I need a pool or a home office or a back office or something, because it's just, it's changed, right? So anyway, closing the gaps, that's my fuel. That's what fires me up. And I really genuinely enjoy that because I see the fruit of that, right? When I see it work, it's like, awesome. That's fantastic. That person accomplished what they wanted to.
Right. Yeah. So you threw me a curveball there. I thought, did I miss a book in between here? So
no, it's coming. It's coming.
Okay.
Still being written. Yeah.
Man. So yeah, and that's just interesting. So closing the gap, I love it. And with what you do, how are you able to use your life experiences? And I know you've been through some pretty serious stuff, right? Three-time cancer survivor.
Yep.
So I'm sure some of that plays into your fuel. And how are you able to translate your fuel into helping people close the gap? I mean, personally.
Yeah, man. So 3 bouts of cancer and a heart attack. Let's add that to it.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm, otherwise a pretty healthy guy, right? Like you meet me and you'd say, well, okay, 6'3", 225, like he seems to move around okay. It was hereditary. It was one of those where the cardiologist said this shell was in your chamber, right? It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when. So anyway, I'm sort of early detection guy, right? If my public service announcement right now to anybody listening or watching is, get checked out, particularly guys. My experience is that women do this because it's a part of their lives as they're young women growing up. They get that they need to get checked out. Guys are typically a bit more dense when it comes to that, right? And so let me be the guy that says, hey, when we come out of this, get checked out, right? Get your colonoscopies, go to the dentist, go to the cardiologist, like just get checked out. So I'm early detection guy. But the way that those have manifested in terms of what I bring to coaching through those experiences, which I think was your question, is that, Chris, you hear this all the time, and it's so sad. I wish there was another way to do it, but you appreciate the brevity of life when you have been down a path where you thought that you might lose it. And so we see that all the time with our warriors, right? In my first book, I interviewed Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, and a Top Gun instructor. And man, there is a zest for life with most veterans that is unparalleled, often true with first responders. And for those of us, I think, that have dodged a bullet, in terms of our health. So that's probably the biggest one for me, is that I just try and help clients to realize that, man, don't take anything for granted. Every day is a gift. The psalmist tells us to teach us to number our days so that we may have a heart of wisdom. And that's what that means to me. It's like, man, there is no guarantee. What that means to Coach Bill is every single day when I wake up, I want to pull as much out of this day as I can and give as much to others as I can, because tomorrow's not promised to me. I don't know. I may live another 25 years. That'd be awesome. But if that doesn't happen, I am not going to get to the end of the day and look back with regrets. And that's something that I try and bring to the coaching world as much as I can, is to help people live all in, hence the name of the podcast.
Yeah. Nice. So yeah. And that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges I think, I've found, going through coaching and working with different coaches is getting someone to really be able to get you to go all in, right? It's easy to it's real easy to sign up for coaching. I'll tell you that. You can, and
All you need is a credit card. Super
yeah,
easy. Yeah.
super easy, right? And then, but where the rubber meets the road is the execution and going all in. And
Yep.
That for me early on, and was a struggle with coaching. And there's always things that we can improve on as I continue with my coaching and in different areas. But as you kind of get people to go all in, how are you able to flip that switch? Because it's not easy to do.
Yeah, it's not easy to do, man. That's a great question, and that's the part I can't control, right? We often talk in coaching about the 3 buckets. I don't know if you remember this story, right? So it's control, no control, and influence. So as a coach, there are certain things I can't control. I can't control Chris's past, your livelihood, even your mindset. We can argue that I could influence your mindset. That's a possibility. I could recommend books and podcasts and encourage you, but there's a whole lot that I can't control. So the things that I try and do is I try and identify something in a client's past where they've had some achievement. So that could have been scholastics or martial arts or the military or music, any place where I've got a 16-year-old granddaughter right now that's an ice skater. She's probably been skating for, I don't know, man, 11 years. And I keep telling her, you have no idea how that discipline to wake up at 4 a.m. and go to you're a hockey player, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cold ice rink in the morning.
Right. Well, you guys you got different activities, but you're in the same environment. And, when you see the little pink girls in their twirling dresses, right? But you know what, man, she's had injuries and that ice is very unforgiving, as you well know.
Yeah.
And so what I tell her is what I know as a coach, honey, is I see in you a discipline that is uncommon in most 16-year-old girls. Now the question is, where will you take that and deploy it? And so that's what I look for, Chris. I always try and find, is there someplace else in this client's life where they've experienced that kind of discipline? And now we can pull that into what they're doing professionally. Because if I'm in a business, like the mortgage business, right? It's a great industry if you show up and work hard. It can be very profitable. It's a phenomenal business. You can change your life in this business. I've seen it happen so many times. But if you don't show up, step up, and be disciplined, you're going to get average results. And in real estate, you've got a lot of realtors that listen to this. One of the things that I see with real estate agents 30 years into this with realtors is it's easy to be what I call a dabbler. You know what a dabbler is, right? They dabble. They get a license. They show up for the office meeting. They eat some bagels and fruit. They go out on caravan, but they sold 3 houses last year. Like, what is that? What is that? And so, when you contrast that to Kenny Klaus in Phoenix, Arizona, he's a former FedEx driver who got into real estate and he sold a house a day for the past 10 years. Like, what the heck, man? What's the difference there? Right. And so I just try and find that thing that they've already got. But often, Chris, what I'll do is I'll describe to a client so how tall are you, Chris?
5'11".
So I'll say, Chris, I actually see an outline that's 6'11" around you. Like I see the shape of your body, but it's bigger than you. And so my challenge as a coach is to help you step into that. There's so much more that's possible. And I think that gift of exhortation and encouragement, when it's legit, it can't just be empty, right? Like I won't say it if I don't think it. Right. If I see that somebody can step up, I think that's my job. We were talking to Gene earlier, your producer, and, he was talking about a coach he had that had my name years ago. Like, what are the odds, right? But if you've ever had an athletic coach that has said, you can do this. I see you have talent. Right. Man, if I step into that, that's called the self-fulfilling prophecy, and there's nothing more powerful.
Nice. Yeah, and that's awesome. And that's kind of what we try to do here on the podcast is tap into that fuel.
Totally.
Right? You're looking for that experience, that maybe it is that win or that success that you had at some point in your life, or that mentorship that when you get hit with something like we're dealing with now, that you can just come out on the other side, ahead, come out winning.
Totally.
because, I think I commented on one of your Facebook posts where I think you were a little upset at the mortgage industry there, right? You were telling people to step up, because this is the time right now where you either step up, and man, the opportunities that are here right now, I'm blown away. Every time I turn around, I'm like, oh my goodness, look at this new opportunity because of this experience.
Absolutely.
And I mean, look, no doubt we're all experiencing our own challenges, our own pain. But coming out of that, there's growth, right? So that's what we want to do. We want to tap into that fuel and those experiences so that we can come out ahead, and we're not curled up in the fetal position. So, counting the cases on the news. I mean, look, what's going down is going down. So,
right.
we want to, so, I mean, that's what we really hope that people will take away from Fuel, is being able to tap into that. And let me ask you, Coach,
sure.
We know it's hard to do, right? It's when you do it, and in 25 plus years of coaching, what's the common thread that you see in the people that are able to flip that switch and break through?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say clarity and commitment. That's immediately what comes to my mind. Clarity around what it is that they truly want. And it seems odd, I think, Chris, because you recall when we start with a new client, and we coach people in mortgage, real estate. Daimler is our largest client in the world. They're out of Stuttgart, Germany, the parent company of Mercedes and Chrysler and Daimler Trucks North America. Chick-fil-A is one of our big clients. So no matter who it is that we coach, we always start with a life plan, right? A life plan. So let's start with what I want in my life personally. Then what do I want in terms of a business plan? And so, for us, the thing that we're always looking for is clarity. When a client comes to me and says, I want to make $1 million, like, okay, cool. So what does that mean? What's that about? Is that legit? Is that real? Is that a number that you've heard? Or a realtor, right? If a realtor comes to me and says, I want to be on the convention stage, next year, like that's my goal, I'll generally try and push back on that a bit and question, like, why is that? If that's really the thing, cool, let's go for that. But what does that mean to you? Because if you're driven by President's Club and Chairman Circles and, all these artificial top line awards, that's got nothing to do with anything. That's their game, not your game. I want to know what you want to do. So when I'm talking to a client and they say, I've got $100,000, I just had a client tell me recently, $100,000 in credit card debt. Smart person building a house right now. And we're having a conversation about, so 5 years from now, what does that look like for you? Let's have that conversation. Well, I want to have paid that debt down. I want to have some freedom. I want to have some choices, particularly after living through this period. You know what this is like, Chris. You talk to people all the time that are, they're maxed out. They were a month away from filing for unemployment. And now we got 30 million people that have, right? So it's, yeah, man, it's clarity around what they want. And then I think just a commitment or conviction around, I will do what it takes to make that happen. That's really the secret sauce. It's occasionally, years ago, it doesn't happen very much anymore. You'll remember we would be at Todd Duncan's event out in the desert, and you'd see people on stage and they'd talk about being coached by building champions. And we would say, they would come to us and say, I want to be coached. Well, what they really wanted to do is just be a part of the club.
Okay.
They didn't want to do the work.
Sure.
Stephen Pressfield wrote a book called Do the Work.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's all about. You know that.
Yep. Yeah. It's the secret sauce. Just
do
the work.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's amazing, right? So awesome. Well, that's, really, it's so funny. It just comes down to that simple thing, do the work. And how are you seeing people, given the current environment that we're in, are managing, are you seeing that your clients and that people that are performing at a top level are they unfazed by this? Are you with this COVID-19? And
man, I don't think anybody's been unfazed, but I do coach some very successful 7-figure earners, many of whom own tons of rentals and have passive income. But I don't know anybody that was unscathed by this. I really feel like the first 3 or 4 weeks, you've heard people talking about going through the grieving process through this.
Right.
Like I'm grieving the old normal. And I just think there was a lot of that. We were in touch with a lot of people, a lot of our best clients through this. And whether it was them or people in their home or people on their team, there were people that were just all of a sudden like emotional. They would just start to cry and they didn't know why. And so there was a very weird transition period that I think for most people is behind us now. I think most people are kind of, okay, I don't love it, but we're educating the kids at home and we're doing that. And I'm now doing Zoom calls, too many times a day. And, I don't have not me, but I do them all the time, right? But you know what I mean? Yeah, people are suddenly, they've got laptops on kitchen tables and ironing boards. And so but if you ask me about what are the top producers doing now, which is kind of your question, the most effective people I know, they have got radar lock, Chris, on I know what needs to happen right now. And honestly, at the time that we record this, I think we're at that tipping point. I know Pennsylvania's not open yet, but it'll happen. There's so much pressure from states, and isn't it weird how it breaks down along red and blue lines? It's just bizarre, but it does. And there's enough pressure that we're going to start to see businesses opening. It's phased out, right, or phased in, and various things will start to happen. But the most effective people that I'm connected with right now, dude, they're just back to the basics, having conversations with people. If you talk to enough people, leading with your heart, like we did at the top of this call, like, how are you? How's it going? How are you guys? Never lead with a business purpose, in my opinion. If it's a prospecting call, it's like, find out how they are, let them bring up business. Make notes, right? Put it in your CRM, follow up in a meaningful way. I think that's the name of the game right now. I just interviewed, I don't know if you saw this, a guy named Ben Oosterveld out of Toronto, I think. I get lost on Canadian cities, but I think he was in Toronto. And this guy was homeless and got into real estate a couple of years later and made $1 million in commissions his first 2 years in the business. First 2 years in the business. And he just released a paper that says, here's 10 things that agents can do during this pandemic. And it started with pick up the phone and talk to your database. Right. So if you ask me what people are doing right now, that's it. I think it's you follow up with your database, you follow up with the prospects that you had before the world exploded. Sure. And you get a lot more visible. Social media is game changing for us. I think you know this, Chris, but I've really built my business and my brand on social. Yeah. And it's just, I couldn't have done it 15 years ago, but you can do it today. So if you're a financial professional, if you're a realtor, whoever you are, if you're a dentist, if you're on this call, find a way to connect with people and be more visible than you ever have been. That would be my best advice.
Awesome. I love it. And it couldn't be easier, right? I mean, I'm sitting in my living room. It's so there are so many tools and platforms out there. And, I think people are going to be a lot more comfortable with these types of meetings, right? Yeah. Zoom, everybody's Zooming, as I call it. I'm like, how many Zooms do you have today? Totally. And so, we're using this and we're shifting our business, and we had our kind of aha moment. We're like, back in probably right around when you and I worked together, clients used to come in the office, right? They used to sign the documents. They'd bring their kids. They'd be running around, bouncing off the walls. We'd meet them. We'd have that relationship building. Well, that went out the window with technology. And we're like, hey, we're going to send you these documents, e-sign this, are we good to go? And we'll see it settlement. Now we're like, well, and now we're like, well, let's do the Zoom meeting for everybody. Let's get that connection back. And we're going to carry that through our business. We're going to meet everybody on Zoom that's interested. And so there's so many opportunities and ways to connect. So I love that advice. And a couple of things that you talked about, and put you on the spot a little bit here, Bill, if I can, because you talked about that life plan, and is that something that you could share with our listeners that I could maybe throw?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll give you a link. You can put it in the show notes. I'd be happy to do that. And I would really challenge you guys right now. If you've never done a life plan, here's what's awesome about it. I talk about closing the gaps, right? Yeah. Between where you are and where you want to be. You start by doing something that's very counterintuitive. You write your eulogy. But in Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? He talks about begin with the end in mind. Well, here's what we know. There's only one guy that didn't end up that way. And you're not him, and neither am I.
Right.
So we know at some point, right, there's going to be a gathering someplace. Hopefully everybody doesn't have to wear masks, and there actually can be a gathering, and they can be closer than 6 feet. But they're going to be talking about us, right? And, hey, Chris lived this great life, and he was this guy, and he meant this to me, and I'm going to tell some funny stories. And it's what we do, right, for closure. And so we just imagine, we ask you to imagine that moment when particularly the people in the first 3 rows, because those are going to be your family, right? Family and close friends. Yeah. And we ask you to think about, if you were taken out tomorrow, what would they say? And then if you could work on the things that aren't quite where you want them to be, and maybe it's 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, what would that look like? And so that's a way to close the gaps and say, this is the kind of husband I want to be. This is the kind of wife I want to be. This is the kind of sibling I want to be. This is the parent I want to be to my kids. Here's what I want to be remembered by. This has nothing to do with I want to earn $1 million, right? Now, it might include an account where you say, I want to give back to charity. I am seeing such a gap right now. That right now in LA, they're talking about putting the homeless in the downtown LA Four Seasons Hotel, which has residences, multi-million-dollar residences in the Four Seasons. You can imagine what's happening there right now, right? And there's this huge chasm between people, the population that are most at risk, and those that are at the opposite end of the spectrum, right? So it might be something that you say, I want to have an impact there. But yeah, man, happy to share that with you. And if there's any questions that people have and they want to email me, bill@buildingchampions.com, I'd be happy to answer those questions as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that, because I that life plan, and kudos to Building Champions and whoever it was that, if you had a hand in creating
Daniel
that.
Harkavy created it, the founder of our company. Yep.
Because, and I still have a lot of the tools, from our coaching, because, one of the things I loved about them is they're simple.
Right.
It's like, hey, here's the plan. And it wasn't this overcomplicated thing. So I'm going to get that.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think we make our stuff simple?
So people will do it. Otherwise, it's not going to get done.
It gets done. We have a one-page business plan, 1 page, right? This stuff is all designed, as you said, to just get it done. And if you get it done, what we know is then it's much easier to stay connected to. And as Darren Hardy says, the publisher of Success Magazine, it allows you to calibrate your day. So instead of waking up in the morning and saying there's a dozen things I could do, these plans allow you to just focus in and say, but these are the 3 things that matter the most today. Right.
And Coach, it's so true. And I'll still remember, and just to eat the frog. I still have
baby.
The book. Still have the book, man.
And
so
you got to have one on your desk, right? I have this frog on my desk for that very reason, to remind me every day. I got to do the worst thing first. Eat that frog.
Yep. I still live by that, man. That's my morning workout.
Cheers.
So,
right on.
Cheers. Awesome. Well, Coach, it's been a pleasure catching up.
My pleasure, man. So good, Chris.
Yeah, and having you, just to, really share all these little nuggets and seeing you, man, it's just a voice in my ear. Just brings back memories, Coach. I really
likewise.
And glad to hear that the family's doing well and everything. So
we're golden.
Awesome.
Chris, let me just say, I am super proud of you, man. I love what you've built. I love what you're doing now. When I talk about being visible, like, this is the ultimate example of that nobody else does. So the fact that you've gone to the trouble to create a show that focuses on fuel and focuses on things, that implementable strategies that people can actually execute on, is amazing. So way to give back. And full disclosure, like, these are not big money makers unless you're Joe Rogan or Jocko.
Yeah. So if you notice, our sponsor happens to be my company.
I noticed that. I did notice that.
So people aren't flowing dollars in just yet. So so that's. But
give it time, man.
It's really my passion. I mean, the mortgage industry allows me to connect with people. That's the vehicle I use now, but ultimately that's my gift, is to connect with people and share stories. So
for sure,
this medium gives me that opportunity, and it's it's just been so great getting to have people like such as yourself on the show. So now for the fun part, we're going to hit you with rapid fire as we wrap this up.
Bring it on.
All right. 3 questions.
Yep.
Man, we could almost change this because we usually say you're stuck on an island. We could almost say you're quarantined, but we'll keep it with we're stuck on an island. And other than, we're going to throw the disclaimer out there, close friends, family, loved ones, we know that you would take those people first. But we'll put them out, we'll assume they're there, and we'll say, who would you take with you? A person in your life. It could be a celebrity. It could be an influencer. Who would you take?
Yeah, so this is going to sound random to you, but it's a guy that I'm really appreciating more and more right now. Is a guy by the name of Dr. Henry Cloud, who wrote a number of books, Boundaries for Leaders, The Power of Now. It's just a brilliant guy, and I saw him do a webinar recently on the psychology of crisis. And so he's the guy that speaks into the kind of the neuroscience of why we feel the way we feel. And I could talk to this guy for hours. I could listen to him for hours. I wouldn't talk to him. I would listen to him for hours. I do just have to make one distinction though, and that is I would choose to be stuck on an island. So stuck to me, like that's a vacation destination for me. So please make this happen. I am
okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Awesome. Second question, and I see you've got many behind you, and I know you got a lot of nuggets here. One book, if you could take that has had an impact that you could share with our listeners.
Wow. Honestly, it probably would be The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I so loved that book. There was so much truth in that. And I don't know if I ever told you this when we were coaching, but Stephen Covey has since passed, and I sat behind him on an airplane, sat next to him on an airplane once, flying to Michigan, of all places. I was doing a talk back there. Didn't know it was him.
Nice.
We're going down the escalator. I'm about 8 feet behind him, and at the bottom of the escalator, there's a guy with a sign that says Dr. Covey, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Dude.
I've been next to Stephen Covey for 3 hours?
No way. Oh, man.
Yeah. So 7 Habits of Highly
awesome.
Effective People would be my probably number one choice.
Awesome. All right. Last one's a fun one. Favorite food. What do you have to take with you on the island? What has to be there?
Cheeseburgers. Cheeseburgers in paradise. I mean, Jimmy Buffett. Come on.
Nice.
They're
Love
synonymous.
it. Love it.
Yeah,
awesome.
Man.
Cool. All right, Coach. Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. We'll get that business plan out there. We'll share it in the show notes. For people that want to connect with you, otherwise, how can they find you? Where can we find you, Coach?
I am pretty easy to find on social. Just at Coach Bill Hart, anywhere, any of your favorite vehicles. I don't do much on Twitter, but other than that, you'll find me on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And if you want to email me, bill@buildingchampions.com, and everything else I think is in the show notes.
All right. Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, we hope you enjoyed the show today. And if you got something out of this, we ask that you share it on social media. If you're listening on iTunes, give us a 5-star rating. And on that note, we're out.